differences.
Honorable member.
But why you don't want me to speak the truth?
Honorable
but
members.
he disturbed me a lot.
Honorable
Can
members.
I have 15 minutes, Mr. Prime Minister? Mr. Prime Minister,
Honorable member.
you're not supposed to be so petty.
Honorable member, I'm speaking to you.
Yes.
I gave you an extra 10 minutes already.
Yeah, well, I started at quarter to, the Madam Speaker.
I gave you an extra 10 minutes.
No, I started
Please
at quarter. So how much, I can have 10 more minutes, Madam Speaker?
No, they said 5. Please wrap up in 5.
Okay. No problem,
That's not up to me.
But overall, Madam Speaker, this Mount St. John Medical Center Act of 2009, it will prevent the People's Hospital, keep quiet man, from living up to its full potential. This Mount St. John Medical Center Act of 2009 will prevent the People's Hospital from living up to its full potential as an institution where every woman and child in Antigua and Barbuda can have access to the very best health care available. It also stands in the way of Mount St. John becoming a regional referral center for the Caribbean, especially in areas where our surgeons in Antigua and Barbuda have already claimed pioneering roles in specific subspecialties. But, Madam Speaker, the proposed legislation will frustrate the effort to capitalize on the area of health tourism, whereby US and Euro residents who already travel outside of their countries seeking certain aspects of healthcare, such as plastic surgery, bariatric surgery, as well as dialysis for cruise ship and hotel guests, they'll be accommodated. But how are you going to do that without private practice? How, Mr. Minister? These were the bases, Madam Speaker, guaranteed to make Mount St. John an outstanding success story. Exactly what Lester Bird and Joy John championed from the inception of the project, when he was ridiculed as a dreamer and the proverbial architect of the pie in the sky and white elephant. But, Madam Speaker, before I close, today the UPP has not even settled with the nurses and the other workers at the Alberton Hospital on what their new situation at Mount St. John will be, notwithstanding plans to open the facility as part of the Big Blue Wave election campaign program. As recently, Madam Speaker, as last Wednesday, the Attorney General met with the nurses. During that meeting, he was still trying to ram down the nurses' throats that their only option in moving to Mount St. John was to continue to work substantially as government employees. The nurses, Madam Speaker, they have vehemently and quite rightly have demanded to be severed and to be rehired under new terms and conditions of the board. But in typical UPP tyrannical dictatorial fashion, Justin Simon, the Honourable Attorney General, he was steadfast in the take it or leave it UPP fashion. But through you, Madam Speaker, through you, I want to remind the Honourable Attorney General, I hope he's listening tonight, in the words of one of the nurses at the meeting, who fearlessly stood up and reflected the position of her colleagues, and I quote, she told him, bricks and mortar and buildings do not define a hospital. It is the services rendered by the care providers inside the building that defines it. End of quote. And Mr. AG, you better heed their warning. You better heed their warning that they will remain at Halberton. They'll remain at Halberton until their needs are met. I think you know that the offer was flatly rejected by the nurses. But, Madam Speaker, with that meeting ending in the way it did, it is quite disingenuous of this UPP government to come and rush this patchwork bill through the Parliament of this fair land, when you simply have not done the necessary groundwork to make it a success. Instead, Madam Speaker, it is the beginning of a disaster, the recipe of confusion and chaos. And by the way, the Attorney General threatened the nurses. He threatened them, and he told them that he was going back to Cabinet to prevent them from working anywhere else in their off hours, in their spare time. It's not Asot Michael saying so tonight. Call the nurses, ask any of them. He told them that he's going to Cabinet to make sure that they can't work anywhere in their spare time. But I want to tell him, The unified word out there on the street of the nurses is the rather riot first. I'm sure they meant this figuratively, but you get the picture, Mr. Prime Minister. But our commitment of the Antigua Labour Party when we regain office in this country, to the nurses and all the hospital workers, is that when we take office, the Antigua Labour Party will immediately expedite negotiations for proper termination of the existing employment arrangements and the commencement of new contracts with attractive working conditions and competitive levels of compensation as employees of the Mount St. John Medical Centre. Madam Speaker, I fully expect that the UPP will be mature enough this evening to take this bill back, send it back to PAC, to the drawing board for a total revamp in keeping with the emerging healthcare realities and improved standards of corporate governance, Madam Speaker. There's no justification. There's absolutely no justification for this rushed job that has understandably fallen well short of the mark. And it has left us, Madam Speaker, with unacceptable cut and paste legislation, desperately in need of major remedial work. As painful as it may be, Mr. Prime Minister, the UPP and your party must understand that this cheap little blue wave games will not work at this 11th hour. It simply cannot continue with the pattern of betrayal, Madam Speaker, the pattern of deception that has led us to this indecently hasty legislation after squandering 5 long years of valuable healthcare planning and development on silly, petty vendetta politics.
Thank you,
just
sir.
Because it was a Lester Bird project. Madam Speaker,
Yep.
let us therefore find
Out
the
of
common
time.
sense and the common courage to prevent this enabling legislation for the Mount St. John Medical Centre from being kicked around like a political football in the current election campaign. And I humbly suggest and submit that we defer its proper consideration to whichever party emerges as the new government. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable Member, thank you too, and I'll direct you to Standing Order 33-6 so that you can govern your debate in the future. I now acknowledge the Honourable Member for All Saints, Eastern St. Luke.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I won't be very long because I believe the weekend has been well spent by us all.